Have you had a chance to secure Senator Fawcett's information about whether a reason was contained in the letter, or was it just a formal termination notice with no content?
It is, as I had believed, it is a formal termination. It didn't go into the details of why that decision was made. This would not be, we would normally follow this up with a verbal meeting, which I conducted on Monday with Warren McDonald. And when I spoke to Warren McDonald, we told them that we would go through their tender response as we would normally do under these circumstances.
So that type of detail that Senator Fawcett referenced earlier in terms of more detailed conversation about reasons why will occur. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just clarify?
Certainly.
Was Air Vice Marshal Schul giving you the feedback I had asked for?
Yes, he was, Senator. I've just had a quick look at the letter. It's a formal letter about the termination of an RFT process. It does not go into the rationale for that. And I've committed, as we would normally do in these sorts of circumstances, to sit with Lockheed Martin and debrief them and work them through the process. As we did on Monday, Lieutenant General Coyle and I were both in the meeting with Warren McDonald, and we will conduct that review with them together.
So my specific question was, did the letter mention funding or budget, lack of the Commonwealth's ability to afford the project in whatever form you wish to put that? Was that mentioned to Lockheed Martin in that letter?
No, Senator.
Mr Deeble, can I just come back to you then? One of the upsides and downsides of having been around this place for a long time is I distinctly recall sitting in probably this seat grilling then General Morrison about the cancellation of self-propelled artillery back in about 2009, I think it was, 10, in that sort of time frame. And eventually, after a long and tortuous process, we got to the fact that it was actually budgetary pressures. Defence was struggling to find the money and had to find a saving. So I've seen this process go through a number of times. I am just keen to clarify completely, if it wasn't in the letter, was budget mentioned, the lack of finance, difficulty in finding the funds mentioned in the discussion with Lockheed Martin when they were being informed that what had been leaked to the media by someone unknown beforehand was the reason for the termination of the tender?
Senator, we talked about the work that had been done with Lockheed Martin, the engagement that we'd had over a period of time, how we appreciated the effort that was undertaken, the disappointment that would be inherent in making these cancellations. That was on both our own teams that had worked together closely, through what is a very difficult process for a very complex capability.
I'm sure you did discuss that, Mr Deeble, but that was not my question.
We discussed the fact that there was a change in the strategic circumstances for those issues. Warren McDonald talked about that, but we made it very clear that this was about the capability changes that were required to be able to be delivered.
That's still not my question, Mr Deeble. I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but at the end of the day, this is a committee of the Parliament seeking to make sure the taxpayers of Australia understand what pressures the Department of Defence is being placed under, and I wish to know whether the issue of budget and funding availability was part of that discussion relayed to Lockheed Martin.
I can confirm that Warren McDonald raised the issue of funding as part of that discussion. We talked through the issues associated with the change in the capability circumstances.
And so in response to his raising it and talking through, were his suspicions confirmed that this was one of the drivers, may not have been complete, but one of the key drivers for the decision being taken, it appears, by the Deputy Prime Minister?
In the discussion that we had, we talked about the range of issues that are associated with the National Defence Strategy and the prioritisation that was key to that. We talked about how we had tried to work together to look for options within that context and delivering minimal viable capability for the ADF in that context. We did not get down into the specifics of the budgetary issues associated with the DIIP or the National Defence Strategy, other than the fact that this was a prioritisation done within that context.
So within the context of the fact that our strategic circumstances have a range of priorities, what I'm reading into that statement was that he could have walked away from that thinking they can't, this is not the priority it used to be and the funding is not available in the light of other priorities.
We had worked with Lockheed Martin, understanding what some of the constraints were within our budgetary context. He had an awareness of that budget, budgetary issues that we were confronting. He could have drawn that conclusion.
Okay, so at any time, was it relayed to him that the decision that the Deputy Prime Minister had made was largely on the basis of wishing to put the funding elsewhere?
We never discussed any decision by the Deputy Prime Minister. We never discussed any discussion or anything around the movement of the money that was directed by the Deputy Prime Minister, because that was not the case.